So, this is a very interesting question, and it's difficult to answer without offending some people, you know. So, I'm going to answer it in a coded way, but I'll tackle more in existence rather than belief. My own belief is with me. I reveal it to whoever I want, however I want it, or not. But we're going to talk about um, existence. Now, throughout history, people have always claimed that God exists, and there will always be people who say God does not exist. And I'll give reference with the Bible because I have a Christian background. There was a time in the Bible where some Pharisees and Sadducees came to Jesus and said that a woman married and then the husband died. So the husband's brother decided to marry the woman. And then he died again. The husband's brother decided to marry, like that. Almost 7 brothers, all of them died. So they now asked Jesus, since you say there is heaven, when this woman gets to heaven, which of these 7 brothers was going to be his wife, her husband? So Jesus answered them that in the resurrection, I'm talking about Matthew chapter 22, from verse 20 going to 30. That's where it is in the Bible. Jesus said that after death, in resurrection, there's no marriage. Everybody will become like angels. So it's an interesting theology, but let's look at it though. Does God really exist? The honest answer is nobody knows. All right, what people will always look at is the created stuff and then make inference that there is a creation. All right, because if I look at an iPhone, I can tell for sure that there is an iPhone company. This phone must have come from somewhere. Do you understand? And true, if we go to the iPhone company, we will see them manufacturing phones. So people will always look at nature. They look at the planets, look at the solar system, they look at trees and other animals and say, there must be a creator. All right, all these things can just suddenly appear. So you see, it's an inference. Nobody has a proof. If you look at, and of course, in most cases, some of these inferences are logically sound. They make sense, all right? If you look at evolution, the theory of evolution doesn't say whether there is God or not. What the theory of evolution is saying is that animals over time adapt and turn into other animals that are more comfortable with the environment. If you take a dog to an island where there is no meat at all, and the dog starts eating only what is available, which is plants. You know, some dogs eat plants. I used to have a dog, some eat rice. So if they start eating plants, if you come back to that island in a million years, what you will see is another animal that used to look like that original dog. That dog has changed, and its teeth has adapted to eating rice. So the teeth will now be like human teeth. You know, normal dog teeth has canine for tearing meat. And a lot of things about it will adapt to that environment. So by that time you come back in 1 million years time, the animal you're going to see is going to be different from the original dog that arrived. So all living things we see now are evolved and modified versions of the earlier living things that used to live. And this world is so difficult for survival. Life is hard for life to survive here, that even you as a human being, if you get everything right, you will still die under 100 years. So the scientists are saying 99.9% of living things, different species that have tried to live on this planet, have gone extinct because adaptation is difficult. All the living things you are seeing now is just 1% of living things that have tried to live in this planet over 4 billion years. So it doesn't say whether there's God. So evolution will trace back all these things back to one single cell that existed 4 billion years ago. And this, in modern days, we now have DNA tests. They can use DNA tests and see that all living things contain this DNA of that first living cell. So that's proof that evolution is correct. All right? But it doesn't say, where did that cell come from? It doesn't say that. It doesn't know. It's not part of evolution. So if somebody can come there and insult God and say, God created that cell. Fine, but the person saying it is not sure too. What if some aliens arrived and dropped the cell? Just like we go to farm. The person might be mistakenly worshipping the alien because they're assuming that something must have dropped it, so that thing must be God. You worship the alien. What if that alien was created by another alien? You get what I'm saying? To what? One thing we observe in the universe is things are in cycles, seasons, you see? A day will come, night will come, year will come, year will... So if you keep going back, nobody knows whether it's infinity. So we don't know whether it evolved. Some scientists are saying maybe that thing happened because of, they call it primordial soup. At that time, 4 billion years ago, the earth was boiling hot. The earth is actually cooling down now gradually. That's how they know that. If you trace back the temperature, that time it was boiling. That's how we have mountains. Imagine water boiling. All right. So, and then it freezes. That's how we have mountains. And sometimes tectonic plates. Some land will be moving, all right, floating on water or magma, whatever is under. And then mostly continents, if they hit each other like this, they'll come up like this. That is how mountains form. They are saying in those days, amino acids eventually gained some sort of consciousness and started dividing. But nobody can tell for sure. What of physics? Scientists that look into space, the astronomers, they tell you one thing. These astronomers say physics is the study of how things move. Basically, if I throw a stone at you, how you will catch it, physics will calculate all these things and tell you exactly where that stone will land based on the force, direction, projectile. There's an entire course on projectiles in physics. That's what physics says. Physics does not say who created the whole world or whether it was created. Nobody knows. So with the way the earth is rotating around the sun, if we model it on a computer or calculation on paper and start rotating it back, we can go all the way back. Our instruments now can only reach 13.6 billion years ago. About 100 years ago, the instrument can only reach 4 billion years. But now, we now have instruments and telescopes to look in far into the universe and do some calculations and see that if we roll back all these movements that is happening, all these stars and everything, we can get back to 13.6 billion years when everything was one tiny little, they call it infinitesimal point. It was so tiny that you can't put a quantity, the size to it. Then it started expanding. Now that expansion, we are inside that expansion. So that expansion is still happening because they can calculate the rate it is expanding. You understand? But it doesn't say where did that point come from. The only thing it says that point was there. Not that the universe started 13.6 billion years ago. That we can only measure as far back as then. Do you understand? So inside that point is where you have space, time. You have energy and matter, these four things. Space and time are the same thing. We just observe it differently. Energy and matter is the same thing. Matter is condensed energy. So basically, this thing I'm saying to you now is coming to you through sound waves because my voice is vibrating, generating the sound waves. And they say if there is some equipment we can use to condense these sound waves to the point that it will become matter, we can actually feel it. That's in theory. That's what it means. So when you flash light, they say you can, if you have an energy, so what do you call it, an energy machine, you can condense that light until it becomes something you can touch. So you are energy condensed into you. That's where nuclear fusion and nuclear fission comes, a way to split this matter and release this energy. If you release it, it will become a mighty explosion. That's how they build some of these bombs, mighty bombs. So, but all these things is just understanding what already exists. Nobody knows for sure where anything started, or if it started at all. But if we look at it philosophically, all right, if they say that 13.6 billion years ago, there was a burst of energy, matter, time, and space. You know, they say that this space now between me and this camera is also time. See, it's taking time for my hand to get there. So these are snapshots of existence piled together. Do you understand? So, if we roll back everything, we can roll back to 13.6 billion years ago in time. Can we roll beyond it? Is there a time before time 00 started? Basically, can you answer this question? Is there a time before there? Is there a time when there was no time? Think of a time before the universe existed. Was there a time there? If there's a time there, that means you have not reached the end of the universe, because time is a quantity in this, measurable quantity in this universe, right? If you're saying there was a time before God created everything, that time was there. So who now created that time? How did the time come about? Was there a time before God was created? Was there a time before God created? It doesn't make sense. You can't think about it. It doesn't make sense. So the best explanation is that we are living in an infinite universe. This thing has always been existing. It just changes.